Welcome to this interview with Victoria Groce, the 2024 World Quizzing Champion. You're going to hear her thoughts on the quiz itself, what it was like to win, how she prepared for it, and what comes next. Look out for other interviews with Victoria coming soon. She has been the standout quizzer of the last few years, and as of June 2024, she is the World Quizzing Champion. Welcome, Victoria Groce.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Glad to be here.
We are going to be asking you all sorts of questions, and members of our Patreon have got questions for you, so we'll be throwing those at you. But the first thing I want to ask is, does it feel real yet, being the world champion?
Ish,
Ish.
I think is the answer. Like I've been working explicitly towards this goal since the first time I took the WQC, which I think was
Mm,
2017.
mm,
So, and then I've been working at Quiz for a little while before that. So, I mean, it's really been about 10 years of work to get
mm,
to this point. Um, and the idea that I've, done what was, one of my very biggest goals in Quiz is really stunning to me. I'm not a person who really likes to think, who's good at thinking nice things about myself.
mm.
So, um, there's a little bit of, cognitive dissonance there now that it's finally happened.
Yeah, it
But I'm thrilled.
must be really strange. And the thing is, you've come really close before. You were second last year by a point. A few years ago, you were
It was third.
third, but you actually got more points than the winner. But it was the
If
drop
they
before
had
the
done
thing.
it with the current format where you don't drop a section.
A lot of people have talked about you as a potential world champion. And there's a lot of, oh, the first American, or she'll be the first woman. Did you feel there was kind of a weight of expectation? A lot of people expecting this to happen and almost putting some degree of pressure on you?
It was worse in some other years.
Mm,
Um, 2021 in particular, I had so many people tell me you're going to win.
mm,
And I was uncomfortable with that. And like that quiz hit me very poorly and I didn't come
mm,
anywhere close. Last year I had a lot of people telling me, "Oh, you're going to win." Obviously, last year I just needed a couple of other things to break
mm,
my way.
mm.
Um, like last year, if I get everything in 2023 that I missed by one letter, then I win by 2 points.
Right. Ah,
This year, because it happened so close in time to Jeopardy, I think
mm,
there was a little bit less of, people chattering to me about WQC. When people did, I was able to very sincerely say to them, I spent 3 months of what would normally be your prime WQC study time, um, really preparing for Jeopardy, and the two are not the same
mm,
thing. They're not that compatible.
mm,
Um, I also felt weird with the top American, first American
mm,
thing because it feels really weird for it not to be Steve.
mm. Yeah, and that's Steve Perry, who for many years was the flag bearer of American quizzing.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's the reason that a lot of people, he's certainly the reason I'm
Mm,
doing this is that he
mm,
was the person who always had the international
mm,
quizzes and, organized a WQC
mm,
site here and invited people who were local to play it.
mm,
Like, I think without Steve, I would not really know that this stuff
mm.
existed.
You will have known whilst you were playing the quiz that things were going well for you. You won't necessarily know quite how well and whether
Yeah.
you were winning, but you will have had a sense that you were getting quite a lot of answers right. Um,
It's
and you
actually interesting. That's
yeah,
not really
yeah,
that's only somewhat the case. So I don't like to know the top score
mm.
going in. Um, a couple of people were talking, I made them shut up. I was like, I don't want to know. And normally I have a pretty big split where I do better in the first half than the second half.
Mm,
My four best categories are like art and culture, entertainment, media, lifestyle.
mm,
I don't expect to pick up a lot of points on the top of the field in art and culture because so
Mm,
many of the people who are near the top of the field, that is also a
mm,
big strength for them. Um, Entertainment, media, and lifestyle are the
mm,
three where I'm really hoping to pick up points on the field.
mm,
And while I felt like art and culture went well, and I felt like history went pretty well, and history is one
mm,
where I'm kind of, it's not really a strength or a weakness relative to
mm,
the top players. Um, I'm not really gaining or losing a lot of points there, but I felt like entertainment and media both went badly.
mm,
Like, and it turns out they were just very low scoring sections.
mm.
But I'm not used to seeing an entertainment section where there's so much stuff I hadn't heard of. Um, yeah.
I mean, that was really hard. Entertainment, the top score was 19.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Which,
had an 18 on it, so
yeah.
I wasn't losing ground, but like I think if you told me going in, you'll get an 18 on entertainment and a 22 on media,
Mm,
I would have said, okay, I have no chance.
mm,
Because those are two categories where I need to pick up
mm,
ground, and those are not numbers where you can do that. I didn't think an 82 in the first half, knowing that I usually do worse in the second half, was going to cut it.
mm.
So I asked a friend of mine who I knew the score because he's one of the people that I told to shut up. I said, don't tell me the number, but do I have a shot? And he just very confidently says yes.
Mm,
Because at that point, 82 was about 50% of the leading score. It was,
mm,
basically Dowd had 165 in at that point because it was before his protest had gone
mm,
through. Um, so I get to the second half and it feels very different.
mm,
So lifestyle, I thought I might have put down a 27. I missed a few that I thought I had on there, but I still knew I did well on it.
mm,
Science is one that's a little bimodal for me. I've done a lot of coursework and worked in a biology related job. I was working at a
mm,
scientific journal until about a year ago doing editorial work. And that was like a biomaterials journal. So,
mm,
that sort of thing. But physics, I'm very poor at. I've never taken
mm,
a physics class. So, science tends to be one where I can get some hard stuff, but I can also miss some easy stuff. It's not one
mm,
where I'm likely to contend for the top, but I felt like it went fine. And sports, I felt like went reasonably well by my standards. And then world went like astoundingly well. So I'm thinking to myself, I did better on the second half than the first half. And the way that my friend Jeff so confidently said, "Oh yeah, you've got a chance with an 82." I was like, that means I was probably at or over at the halfway point, and this half definitely went better. So like I finished with about, 30 minutes to go, and I'm just sitting there like, I think maybe I won this.
Wow.
It
And
was a
that's
really good
incredible that you
feeling.
finished. You only have an hour and you finished
Yeah.
in half the time. That is
I
incredible.
always I work very quickly.
Yeah. Clearly. I guess you know what you don't have a clue on or what you can't make an educated guess on, and you don't
I
waste any time on that.
I read extraordinarily fast, so that's
Mm,
part of it. I generally do know what I know and don't
mm,
know. It's not uncommon for me to
mm,
have something that I'm really trying to pull,
mm,
where I might like brainstorm. So like
mm,
sometimes I'll take the back of a sheet and like I remember there was one last year on the debut album for some band,
mm.
and like I could uh, I knew that I knew they were British. I knew they were, I don't remember exactly. I think the answer was Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't think I know this album name, but I'm gonna list every band I can think of that's British of the right vintage and just cross out the ones where I know their debut album was in the wrong year, or where I know, where I'm pretty sure I know the name of their debut album, or where like the other clues don't seem to fit. So like sometimes I will do something like that, and that's usually for just a very few questions. There weren't any this year. Um, like there were a few things where I listed a few possibilities and then kind of tried on what feels
Mm.
best, but there wasn't much of that.
So you've got a good sense of it. with half an hour to go, and then you have to wait until the end of the
Yes.
quiz, and then you have to wait until the marking confirms.
I didn't bring my knitting.
Well, horrendous. What do you
I
do with your
know.
hands in that time?
I
Um,
know.
at what point did you realize that, as opposed to being in with a chance, because others could have found that second half really, really good as well. At what point
Right.
did you realize actually this is my day? And and what is
It,
that feeling like when you have that realization?
it wasn't till the marking was done.
Mm,
So as you know, the marking is done. I had gone through the paper of the person who I was checking, and got that done. And at this point I've done enough of
mm,
these sheets that I can pretty quickly, so I had a little time before that person gave me
mm,
my sheet back. So I'm going through the answers, and I know what my score is by that point.
mm,
um and I knew during scoring that in world particularly, several of the kind of educated guesses that I'd made off of, it,
mm,
like there was one thing where I was like, this has got to be coastal South America. So,
mm,
it was Argentina, it turned out to be correct.
mm,
Um, it was kind of weird on this quiz where you usually expect, like, if you've got it narrowed down to six things, you got a 1 in 6 chance that it's going to hit.
mm,
If you've got it, if it's a 50-50, you're probably going to get half of those.
mm,
Um, in this quiz, I got about the expected number of those, but they all hit in the word section. So they all, and a few in sports. So they all hit like at the end of the quiz. So all the good luck
mm,
like was there at the end. So as I'm, filling out, to check and see what did I get, I was like, yeah, this is a good number relative to what
mm,
I put in the first half. So I put up an 88 in the second half,
mm,
which normally I'm about 5 or 6 points less in the second half than the first half, and this year I was 6 points more.
mm,
So at that point, I pull out my phone.
mm,
I look up what the top score is. I see that it's a 165 on there, and I'm like, all the Europe scores have got to be in. And
yeah.
like I knew that I wouldn't be certain until four people's scores that were going to be after me came in. So Andrew Ellsberger, Matt Jackson, Shane Whitlock, and Patrick Creel. I knew were the people that would have the best chances of catching me, that were
Mm.
going to take it after me. Um, one of my friends in the room knew that Dowd had quote like a billion protests out. So I didn't know for a little while if how many of those would hit, but like we're in the room and everybody's very excited. Several people were very sad at the DC site when I didn't quite get there last year.
Mm,
So people were like, very excited. I got a lot of hugs, a lot of congratulations. So I texted several people. It's like, I think I just won. Uh, so I mean, the rest of the evening we're, I'd made a reservation to have drinks with some people, and every so often, somebody would, refresh the results page to see what had come in. And then when the West Coast scores came in, it was basically all over
mm.
but the shopping at that point.
And then, and what is that feeling, that realization then? Because I mean, I saw you in Spain when
Mhm.
you came third, was it, or in the individuals, or was it yeah, third?
Sure,
And I
yeah.
saw you when you won the team thing, and I saw the emotions there. So when you win the big one, can you put into words kind of
Oh,
what
come
that
on.
feels like?
A little numb in a
Mm,
good way. It was weird because it wasn't like just one moment where,
mm,
it was definitely done. It was, so I mean, so in Spain, there's a moment when they reveal the last answer on the individual quiz, and I can see that, like, I've done enough to make it to third.
mm,
There's a moment where we do the math on the team quiz and we're like, they don't have enough questions to catch us.
mm,
But here it was a case of like kind of dawning realization. So like I I felt really good when I finished the quiz, and I knew I was leading when I checked, when I got the scoring done and checked the results. I found out that, how many protests had been accepted for doubt. And I, saw the West Coast scores come in through the day. So it wasn't like one big moment where all of a
Mm.
sudden I was like, I knew we were just, out celebrating and
Wonderful. And of course, having Phil there as well, your husband, um, I mean, that must make it, if you're surrounded by family and friends and then
yeah.
Phil turns up, and it must make it, really special to share that with him.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so we get done in, in the library basement. And at the point when I can see that my score is going in at number
Mm,
one, that's when I start texting people. And the first people I
mm,
text was the family chat with my husband and my daughter.
mm,
And my husband was about like 10 minutes away gassing up the car. So he gets to the library a few minutes later and just like bursts in the basement. It's like so excited, and gives me a huge hug, and hugs all of our friends who were there. And
mm,
um texted some other friends, and texted Troy, and he called me
mm,
immediately. And I had a
mm,
text waiting on me from Steve Ferry, like, well. And so I gave him the number. And um, he had texted a few other friends who I'd
mm,
promised. My sister wanted to know because we'd
mm,
been out like a couple nights before. So she's like, be sure. Yeah, she had been
mm.
refreshing the results page all day.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot.
I mean, it must just be an incredible experience. I just want to slightly. We will go on to talk about the
Oh, of
quiz in a little
course.
bit more detail, but I just want to touch back with Phil, because when we were in Spain, Phil was out there and he was very kind of supportive and living and enjoying every moment of your success, and clearly was in this case. How important or has it been to your success over the last few years to have that level of support from Phil, who is he's a good quizzer in his own right.
Yeah.
I saw his
Oh yeah.
World Championship score, I think, from 2018. He's a good player,
Yeah.
but you have to devote a lot to be world champion. So,
Yes.
what part does it play having that kind of support and understanding?
Well, not just him, but also our daughter.
Mm,
So I mean, I got back into quiz when she was about like 8 or 9. So she used to do, like, when she was in middle school,
mm,
when she was first on Instagram, she would
mm,
do a mom imitation, which is where she would scroll through Instagram and just, say every noun out loud. Because when I do my Anki, I actually do it out loud. Um, and not if I'm like on a bus or something, but if I'm just at home, I'm saying the answers out loud as I
yeah.
as I do the flashcards. So the two of them are just used to it. They're like, it's the background music of our lives. They both send me, here's a thing that
Mm,
looks like it might come up. And, sometimes with my daughter, it's very arcane K-pop
mm,
trivia.
mm,
She's like, this group just had their debut. But both of them have made it possible for me to have a lot of space to do
mm,
this. And they both just think it's really cool. And
mm,
Nora, like, when I was studying for this and for Jeopardy, she would offer to cook dinner sometimes,
mm,
and just make things easier. Certainly there's been a lot of travel that goes along with
mm,
this. And Phil has been really, very supportive with it.
mm. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I just now got visions of you just kind of sat at home and going, yeah, um, Mordecai and
Right. And it is
that
exactly like
Battle
that.
of the Pyramids or whatever. It's like,
And like
um,
I pace around while I do it
yeah,
too,
oh,
to get the
nice.
attention.
Probably knitting a little
I
hat or
don't actually, because like
something.
I'm holding my tablet with both hands.
Uh,
It would be very hard to knit while I did that.
so we have
Um,
found limits to your abilities.
Unlike that World Championship Betters Guide, I do not actually have, 6 hands.
Dear. We got a question from one of our Patreon members, John. when we spoke 3 years ago in the lead up to one of the World Championships, and I was asking you about what you might how you get the next level, how you become world champion, and you were
Mhm.
saying, well, I need to get better at sport, and if I can focus on world,
Mhm.
both of which happened to a greater or lesser degree this time. John asked, were there any particular questions that came up this year which you'd kind of identified or predicted would come up and specifically learnt for this year's WQC?
Uh, one that I am not surprised came up was Piñera, the recent Chilean president who died in the plane
Hmm.
crash. That felt very likely to come up. Mary Kom, the Indian boxer, that's I don't know
Mm,
that I would have said, oh yeah, that'll come up this year, but
mm,
really a lot of the stuff I kind of identified as very likely for this year did not come up.
mm,
So like I got done with Jeopardy. The last day of taping for Jeopardy was May 1st. So I basically had like a 1 month kind of sprint.
mm,
And I decided to focus on stuff that I would not have hit so much in Jeopardy prep that was current. So I did like every year, usually around March, I go through and I update my current heads of government.
mm,
So like I went and did that. I was really up on recent American popular music because of Jeopardy, but I looked at top hits on like European charts, biggest sellers of the year in Korea or Japan. Like I really expected either Yoasobi or King and Prince, who had the biggest selling album of the year in Japan, to come up. I looked at the biggest, hits of the year in Afropop. I certainly expected kind of more, I expected some of those things to come up because they normally
mm,
do. And there was a Korean artist who came up, but it was like house music from like six
mm.
years ago. The pop music was very dance heavy this year, and I was
Yeah,
not expecting that.
it was, say, the entertainment one was very tricky. The only one I predicted, I think, was the Tracy Chapman Fast Come
Oh
Grammy thing. I
yeah.
thought, oh, that's absolutely kind of
Yeah, that
WQC
is it.
fodder.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
One person I also really thought would come up is Linda Martell
mm,
because of the new Beyonce album.
okay.
So she was the first Black woman to play the Grand Ole Opry
Mm,
solo, and she also guests on a couple of songs
mm,
on the Beyonce album. So I figured that was a very interesting topical hook
mm,
that I would have guessed would have appeared this year.
yeah. So it's a very hard quiz to predict, but nonetheless, you got fantastic answers. Are any answers that stick in your memory that you're particularly happy with, or any misses where, I mean, it's odd to be kicking yourself when you just won the world
Yeah.
championship, but anything that sticks in the memory for kind of the wrong reasons?
Yeah, confused Averroes and Avicenna for the 15,000th time. That feels a little
I got a
bit.
question right that you didn't.
Yay!
That's my win for the year. So,
Um,
but that's
I,
probably because I didn't think of the other one. So,
I,
yeah,
every time one of the two of them comes up, I
yeah.
go the wrong way every single time.
Mm,
So I've got a book on Islamic science that I
mm,
need to like just read and just really learn.
mm,
But every time, every
uh,
single. So that was one. One I was amused to come up was High Point, North Carolina, because I have family in that area.
mm,
So that was kind of a gimme.
yeah.
I remember there was one in lifestyle. It was Ebelskiver. That one I was very pleased with. I've written a question about that, and somebody's like, "You can't write about that; it's too hard." And I was like, "No, it's not."
There's nothing too hard for the WQC.
That's right.
Nothing too hard, nothing too obscure. You can't. What do you mean you can't? You know, ask about a Bolivian banjo player. Of course you
Right.
can. These things come up. It's nice to know that you're human, that you do have the
Oh
things that you
my God,
miss.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's the World Championship. Um, we have to wait another 12 months before we get to go through that particular brand of torture again. John Robinson has asked, after winning the World Quizzing Championship, Jesse Honey famously retired from competitive quizzing. Are you tempted to follow his lead and go out at the top, or does winning make you more determined to come back and defend your title?
I'm taking a like long planned sabbatical. Like I'm not writing, I'm not playing, I'm not doing anything for at least a month, and then for as much longer after that as it feels good. And I'm not sure at this point, like it's too early for me to say exactly how much time I am gonna be up for putting up going forward.
Mm,
Like I very well may get into the lead up to Spain and feel really motivated and prepare. I may go into the lead up to next year's WQC and be like, I really want to, do the back to back.
mm,
But it's also possible that I may say, I just want to do less. I just want
mm,
to show up places and see my friends and play with them. And yeah, work hard enough to be able to do that in a way that's enjoyable.
mm,
But maybe not do the slightly crazed
mm.
amount of skiing I've done over the last,
Mm,
especially the last like 7 years. I just don't know
mm,
where I'm gonna want to go next,
mm.
but I am pretty confident that I'm not retiring like now.
Well, that's good to hear because it would be a huge loss to the quiz
Not
community.
if you're Dan Katiga, who told me to go win the thing and then retire. I
Oh,
adore
bless
him. He's
him.
one of my favorite people. Of
He's superb. Thank you so much for speaking to us and
course.
congratulations once more, Victoria Groce World Quizzing Champion 2024.
Thank you.
This video was produced with the support of our Patreon members. From £3 a month, you can support the work of the channel. You can also attend our members' quiz each month, and you could even be part of the World Quizzing Championship study group. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/allthingsquiz. On screen now, you'll see some links to other videos you might enjoy on our channel, and in due course, we'll be putting up the links to the other Victoria Groce interviews, and you might be interested in my WQC vlog. Thanks for watching, and we hope we see you again.